Now, I don't think it's a big secret on this channel that I get extremely excited at everything in the future that WoW Classic brings. We was only 2 or 3 weeks into Nax and I was already drooling over the Ulduar gear and really just wanting to get in there and start killing bosses. Well, it's been over a month of Ulduar now, and instead of just talking about what comes next phase, let's look together at everything we have to look forward to over the next year.
First, just a quick word from our sponsor.
Whether you play Classic Era, Wrath, or even Retail, sometimes we just need a little bit of help. Some guidance on a rotation for an ult, or a quick breakdown of a boss before you pull, just to freshen up on those mechanics. Or maybe you're changing your profession and want a full breakdown of everything you need from the auction house and what to craft. I've got you covered. Warcraft Tavern has guides for every class and spec for both PvE and PvP, all profession guides with a massive attention to detail. Dungeon guides, raid guides, reputation guides, talent calculators, as well as some other cool things all in one place like server populations, holiday event guides, achievement guides, and so much more. There genuinely is so much I wouldn't be able to cover it all in this small segment. And because there's a comment section within all the categories we've already discussed, the admin of the site are always reading the suggestions or corrections and acting on them to really create a one-stop shop for everything World of Warcraft. Thank you Warcraft Tavern for sponsoring the video. Let's carry on. We arguably are in one of the best points of the Wrath Classic life cycle. So many raids to do, so many changes from Blizzard to actually make people still want to do 10-man tier 7 content and even heroic dungeons, and of course Ulduar. But while we look forward to the next phase from a raiding perspective, it isn't actually that exciting, unfortunately. Yes, we will get a new dungeon, which due to how overinflated the item level in Ulduar currently is, it actually makes the gear a bit lackluster. Trial of the Champion is the dungeon, and it's actually one of my favourites, which you might find a little bit weird. But I've always been a fan of these smaller dungeons where there isn't much running around to do. I always loved Black Morass in TBC, Violet Hold in Wrath, and now Trial of the Champion when it comes with Phase 3. In this dungeon, you've got mounted horse combat where you can put your skills to the test from all the dailies you're probably not even doing, and some of the loot is actually so well itemised it's kind of a shame that on the most part they're going to be fairly useless. On the basis even in normal Trial of the Champion, it's 200 eye level gear, which we're currently getting from all the heroics anyway because we're getting the tier 7 gear from heroics. So other than some good itemization where you've got things like the Black Heart where you get 126 stamina and each time a melee attack strikes you, you've got a chance of gaining 7k armor for 10 seconds, or even Tears of the Vanquished, which is a very good starting Holy Paladin trinket, for example, with intellect and a chance to restore mana. But the problem is, on the basis that this was classed as catch-up gear before, we've already got catch-up gear even in Phase 2 before Phase 3 even launches. Obviously, stepping it up to Heroic makes a bit of a difference because you're now looking at 219 gear, and there are some items in here, again, which are just incredibly well itemised for what they are. But when it's 219 eye level and we can get even just in 10-man Ulduar hard modes 245 item level on weapons, it's a little bit depressing. But I shouldn't be comparing this to Ulduar 10 gear, because if all you do is dungeons, at the end of the day, this is actually better gear than what you can obtain in a 5-man environment at the moment. I will just point out one trinket because I'll get shot by everyone if I don't, but the Armor Pen trinket, which is Banner of Victory, is very nice for many classes, probably even at its 200 eye level, because it just helps you with static Armor Pen if you're going for the hard Armor Pen cap, and it's also got, obviously, a nice attack power proc on it as well. Should Blizzard play with these item levels? Probably not. The raid, which is Trial of the Crusader, is the raid that launches with this phase, and historically is one of those raids that people just don't like. In a reasonably skilled guild, you'll clear this in 35 to 40 minutes. Again, the gear is now not much of a step up compared to hard mode Ulduar 25 gear, but some of the fights are just incredibly fun. The PvP arena style boss is the one that people normally shout they hate instantly, and with good reason. I must admit, the only reason we have only seen this kind of fight once is because it just doesn't work. But it is only just one boss. All the other bosses, however, from the Northrend Beasts where you have to take snowballs into melee to be cleaved while moving out of fire, controlling 2 massive worms and managing your debuffs, to then watching that one guy in your guild get hit by one of the most telegraphed abilities in WoW history. You know who that guy is. You've got Lord Jaraxxus with some epic RP, Twin Valkyries, which still is one of my most favourite fights, probably of all time, because you can single stack them, get ridiculous amounts of stacks of the buff, and just nuke the bosses to oblivion. And who don't like that kind of boss, right? And actually, the final boss is a really unique encounter as well, prolonging the time the spikes are travelling for by using cooldowns like Hand of Protection and Rocket Boots. You're doing this because you have limited amounts of ice patches that you can bring down on heroic difficulty, and the only thing that stops the spikes is the patches of ice. So coordination and good defensive cooldown usage is key, but that's not all with this boss. It even has a great healing mechanic in the final phase of the fight, where it's leeching health, and it leeches more the higher the health the people are. The higher the health the people are. It didn't make sense. So you have to keep everyone low health without letting them die. So it's just a real different mechanic for healers, where actually trying to spam heal people is not the way to go. On top of the fact that you can do all these bosses on normal or heroic, you also have limited attempts on heroic, but with better rewards based on how well you do as a raid. The attempts start at 50, and once they hit 0, that's it. Game over. Any boss is not already killed by your raid will despawn, and that's all she wrote until next reset. However, if you clear the whole raid with at least 25 attempts left, you'll get a chest with some extra loot and a tribute to skill achievement. Do it with 45 or more, you'll get more. Do it with 50, and you can get the most overpowered cloaks available for quite some time. Do all of that, but with no one in the raid dying at any point, and you get yourself tribute to immortality. Pretty nice. Onyxia will also make an appearance, or a reappearance, appearing again in the same place but at a different level. What I do know is it's not the most exciting, but it's also not meant to be the most exciting. It's got some easy to obtain epics that will be great for ults and catch-up gear to get you into current content. It also drops a mount, which is a model based on Onyxia herself, and ultimately we should be grateful that this is even being added, because honestly it's just an anniversary event from back in original Wrath of the Lich King, and on this basis that there is no anniversary, it doesn't technically even need to be added. The boys and girls at Blizzard though have already confirmed we'll get it when I interviewed them with Mr. GM last year. A side note of something that may not seem that impactful but absolutely is the addition of epic gems coming as well at the same time as Trial of the Crusader. The reason that this is more impactful than you might think is because it will start to shatter the market of storm jewels on the auction house, change BIS professions in some cases, because now you've got access to the big gems, blacksmithing starts to creep up in terms of usefulness, and the big one, you can prospect titanium ore to get these epic gems. Everyone I speak to is stacking up on titanium ore now in preparation for this, and it could be a good move, but it also could be a bad move. I've had people tell me things like this have worked in the past, but my understanding is the outcome of a prospect is actually rolled when you pick the titanium ore up. So when you mine it, you have a stack of 5. If you prospect it now, you'll get the same outcome as if you prospected it in phase 1 of Cataclysm. I'm by no means saying that that's 100% accurate, so if you want to take the risk, go get loads of titanium ore, stack up on it, you might get epic gems out of it, but people have told me that they stacked up on fishing bags. Some claim that they did get epic gems in phase 2, others said no, they got none. Could just be luck. I've not really looked into it enough to care, but that's mainly because I have no intentions of stacking up on titanium ore at all, because I'm lazy. So you do you. Next up though, and without a doubt one of the greatest raids of all time for me, and it's a very close one between this and Ulduar actually. The longer I'm spending in Ulduar, the more I think I might prefer ICC. But yeah, we're going to talk about ICC. It's a massive epic raid with normal and heroic difficulties, which you can switch between on a boss-by-boss basis as long as you've killed the Lich King on normal. You've got bosses like Valifria, which is such an underrated boss, but having a PvE encounter in a raid where it's actually healing the boss rather than killing it, genius. Maybe not that well executed, but genius. Professor Putricide, where someone controls a big old ugly monster and drinks up slime to control the room for the fight. A mini-boss that drops a tabard, which everyone gets excited about. An epic gunship battle. Alright, maybe not an epic gunship battle, but just whatever. I mean, it was known as Loot Ship back in the day, and I don't think that's going to change. But this historically has been, and probably still will be, a free heroic kill every week. Would it be nice to see a change? No, probably not. I could sit talking about the ICC bosses all week, but the last part of Wrath is really where it would be nice to see a small change. And you may or may not agree, but Ruby Sanctum being the final tier of the expansion is extremely lackluster. While I appreciate it's not actually a tier of content, but it is a new raid that may be introduced in a phase on its own, and it's got a load of really, really good items that you're not going to need, because once you've killed her and you're getting that loot, what are you going to do with it? It's the end of the expansion, progress is over. Arguably, progress is over once you've killed Lich King Heroic, because not that many people care about Ruby Sanctum anyway. So I got an idea. On the basis it has some of the best gear in the game, what would be great is to still open it on a specific date. Let's say 6 to 8 resets after the launch of ICC, or if you've killed Lich King Heroic, you can get access early. Because like I say, the thing is, by the time you go in and start doing Ruby Sanctum, progress is done on the boss that matters, which is the Lich King. So having it come much later when the real progress of the expansion is over seems kind of pointless to me. At the same time, not having that really overpowered gear to help carry you through Lich King Heroic for at least a couple of months would be a good thing, because after 2 months of raiding ICC, the guilds that haven't killed Lich King Heroic yet, maybe actually having some Ruby Sanctum gear go in and getting a few bits will actually help the progress for those. And the ones who have been killing Lich King from, let's say, week 2, week 3, whatever, you've now got another boss to go and kill, and then you can start passing. You're going to get these really sick trinkets and stuff like that from Ruby Sanctum. Just an idea. There is one other small addition towards the end when we get ICC, and that is the introduction of a vendor. And it's this vendor, the Frozen Orb Trader. You finally actually have something to do with all of the hundreds of frozen orbs you've probably got building up in your bank. It's mainly just for crafting materials and things like that, although you can trade them for things like Crusader Orbs, and there's even a pattern for a frosty flying carpet. But like I say, it's just a nice easy way to be able to get Frozen Orbs, trade them in for Ruined Orbs to then maybe make some boots and belts, Crusader Orbs to use those for the crafted items as well, and then if the Frozen Orbs are actually going to become so cheap, they are rivaled in price to some of these Eternals, which I highly doubt, to be fair. It is a bit of a weird one because I think economy-wise on our server particularly, I don't see Frozen Orbs ever being worthwhile trading in when you've got Eternals selling for like 1 gold each and stuff like that, but we'll see. Based on the timeline of everything discussed, it's probably not going to be quite a year from the date of publishing this video to the end of Ruby Sanctum. In 12 months, we'll most likely be, at very minimum, probably in the pre-patch of Cataclysm, if not actually playing Cataclysm itself. You know as well as I do, I love covering the future expansion nice and early to get the channel ready for Cata launch or Wrath launch when it was TBC. Even by my standards, it's a bit too early to start speaking about Cata, so I'll leave that for a video next week. No, I'm kidding. More like the week after. But as some of you may know, on the 3rd of March, I'm going to be doing something in preparation for the channel for all of the Cataclysm content, so it will start coming middle of the year. So if you haven't hit subscribe, because you won't want to miss all the class changes, profession changes, raid changes, miscellaneous changes, all of that, which obviously, as soon as we get to the point where I'm like, right, ICC's on the way, you know, or like Tok's out and pretty much on farm, and then, you know, it'll be that period between sort of Tok and ICC where I'll start pumping out Cata content. So subscribe so you don't miss it. Peace out.